Horizon flames lit the primeval world as colossal creatures roamed landscapes where each encounter could spell life or death. Across turbulent oceans, dense forests, and sprawling plains, predators and prey engaged in battles that shaped the path of evolution itself. From the earliest terrestrial hunters to the titans of Cretaceous seas, survival demanded strength, cunning, and relentless adaptation. Fossilized bones, trackways, and teeth preserve these epic confrontations, silently recording the drama of existence. Enter a world where giants fought giants, and witness the struggle that defined prehistoric dominance. Titans of the deep, oceanic behemoths collide. Beneath the placid surface of Devonian seas, a hidden world of immense predators surged through ancient currents, shaping the course of life long before the first dinosaurs walked on land. Massive armoured fish, known as placoderms, dominated the benthic and pelagic zones, with jaws capable of exerting over 6,000 newtons of force, enough to crush the protective exoskeletons of contemporaneous prey. Among them, Dunkleosteus torelli loomed as a true titan, with a skull exceeding a metre in length and a bite that could slice through almost any competitor, its feeding apparatus a marvel of evolutionary engineering. Fossil evidence from Michigan and Morocco reveals a complex jaw hinge, allowing simultaneous shearing and crushing, an adaptation unseen in modern vertebrates. Amid this predatory tapestry, early sharks navigated the seas with remarkable agility. Species like Cladocelaceae displayed streamlined bodies with heterocircle tails, enabling sudden bursts of speed that compensated for their comparatively smaller size. Fossilized stomach contents show a diet ranging from armored arthropods to juvenile placoderms, suggesting that even these smaller predators played a critical role in regulating population dynamics. Teeth preserved in Carboniferous deposits indicate repeated serration patterns and wear consistent with active predation rather than scavenging, revealing behavioral sophistication at a time often considered primitive. Coral-studded reefs and submerged ridges became theatres for confrontations between these aquatic giants. Evidence from bite-marked placoderm armour demonstrates repeated attacks, sometimes leaving healed fractures, indicating that these encounters were not always fatal and that individual animals survived multiple skirmishes. Paleontologists have hypothesized that such injuries imply not only physical resilience, but also complex interactions involving territory, dominance, and mating, extending the influence of these apex predators beyond mere consumption into shaping social and ecological hierarchies. In deeper waters, the first coelacanth-like sarcopterygians patrolled with surprisingly stealthy movements. Their lobed fins allowed for subtle adjustments in position, granting access to prey in rocky or vegetated microhabitats that were inaccessible to the bulkier placoderms. Fossilized traces in Devonian sedimentary layers indicate that these fish could approach schools of smaller, armoured fish without creating detectable pressure waves, an early example of ambush predation in vertebrates. Such adaptations underscore the intricate interplay between predator morphology and prey behaviour, foreshadowing strategies that would dominate oceans for hundreds of millions of years. Gigantic cephalopods also entered this marine drama, although evidence remains more circumstantial. Fossilized beaks and hook-bearing arms suggest that ammonites and early squid-like mollusks could ambush juvenile placoderms, while their shells provided both armour and camouflage. Stable isotope analysis of their calcareous shells indicates a diet rich in mid-sized fish, bridging the gap between microscopic planktonic feeders and the leviathans of open water. These mollusks added a third axis of predatory pressure, forcing vertebrate hunters to evolve faster swimming speeds and more efficient feeding mechanics. Turbulent nearshore environments shaped by tidal shifts and storm-driven currents, became arenas for transient but intense predatory encounters. Trace fossils demonstrate that some placoderms exploited shallow waters to corner smaller competitors, while sharks patrolled the edges of reefs in coordinated patterns, possibly hunting in loosely synchronized groups. The juxtaposition of armored ambush predators and agile chasers created a dynamic, multi-layered food web, as revealed by isotopic gradients in fossilized bone material, showing overlapping but distinct trophic niches. One particularly compelling insight comes from the analysis of Titanichthys, a relative of Dunkleosteus, whose massive bladed jaw plates appear poorly suited for active predation on armored prey. Recent biomechanical modeling suggests that it may have employed a filter-feeding strategy, sweeping planktonic organisms from the water while avoiding direct competition with larger carnivores. This diversification of feeding modes illustrates an early example of ecological partitioning, where even apex-sized fish adopted strategies that reduced direct conflict while maximizing resource exploitation. Stratigraphic studies from the Gogo Formation in Western Australia reveal fossil assemblages where multiple apex predators coexisted in surprisingly high densities. Their distribution implies subtle partitioning by depth, prey preference, and activity period, demonstrating that the oceans of the Devonian were far from chaotic battlegrounds. Rather, they were complex systems governed by both competition and coexistence. Analysis of jaw mechanics alongside sedimentology suggests that predator interactions could trigger cascading effects on prey populations, indirectly influencing reef structure, nutrient cycles, and even sediment deposition. Microfossils provide another window into this deep time drama. Tiny scale fragments and conodont elements preserved in sedimentary layers indicate that prey abundance fluctuated seasonally, creating periods of intense predatory activity followed by relative scarcity. Such patterns may have driven evolutionary innovations, including stronger armor, faster strikes, and more efficient locomotion, illustrating that the greatest battles were fought not only between species, but across generations through natural selection. Geochemical data from Devonian oceans show episodes of low oxygen concentration, particularly in deeper basins, which would have forced predators into narrower ecological corridors. Fossil evidence indicates that Dunkleosteus and other apex fish adapted with enhanced gill surface area and robust circulatory structures, allowing them to hunt efficiently in oxygen-limited waters. This environmental constraint likely intensified encounters in oxygen-rich zones, creating hotspots of predatory confrontation, where survival demanded both strength and strategy. The scale of these interactions is staggering. Some placoderms exceeded 8 meters in length, dwarfing most contemporaneous predators. Yet they faced competition not only from each other, but from multiple smaller, yet highly effective hunters. The evidence preserved in fossils, from punctured armor to healed bite marks, from trackways to stomach contents, paints a picture of a marine world defined by constant negotiation between size, speed, and cunning. These titanic struggles shaped the early vertebrate food web, establishing hierarchies and predation strategies that would echo through subsequent geologic periods. Ultimately, the oceans of the Devonian reveal a choreography of survival in which colossal predators did not merely hunt, but competed in a complex ecological theatre, negotiating resources, territory, and opportunity. Their battles, etched into the fossil record, provide a window into the evolutionary pressures that forged vertebrate dominance in aquatic environments. As the ancient seas roared with these leviathans, The stage on land was slowly being set for the first terrestrial giants to emerge, hinting at the titanic confrontations that would soon unfold in forests, plains, and swamps far from the marine abyss. Savage lands, the first giant predators. Amid the cracked and sun-scorched plains, the first land predators stalked their prey with a measured patience unmatched in the oceans, moving through an environment dominated by arid floodplains, seasonal rivers, and sprawling fern-dotted expanses. The Permian world was a harsh crucible, where survival required both size and cunning. Among the apex predators, Dimetrodon stood as a striking figure, its sail-backed form rising above contemporaries. The elongated neural spines, connected by vascularized tissue, not only regulated body temperature, but likely served as a visual display in predatory intimidation or sexual competition, demonstrating that dominance could be communicated without immediate violence. Fossil specimens from Texas and Germany suggest these animals reached lengths of 4 to 6 meters, with skulls capable of delivering crushing bites designed to pierce the hides of even the most robust herbivorous prey. Rivers, shallow and winding, became arenas of opportunity and danger, where ambush could mean survival or death. Trackways preserved in sandstone show repeated patterns of movement, with apex predators approaching herbivores under the cover of sparse vegetation or along shifting riverbanks. These patterns indicate a combination of stealth, patience, and explosive bursts of speed, suggesting hunting behaviors more complex than mere pursuit. Fossilized sediments occasionally capture moments of predation in exquisite detail. A torn rib here, a punctured femur there, recording a confrontation long after the participants were gone. Such evidence illuminates a world where life was contested not only through brute force, but through strategy, timing, and environmental awareness. Fossilized footprints tell stories of creatures larger than any predator before them, moving in deliberate, calculated steps that balanced weight, agility, and muscular power. Gorgonopsids, with their elongated canines and flexible jaws, exemplify a specialization in ambush predation. Biomechanical reconstructions indicate that these predators could open their jaws to a remarkable gape capable of piercing the necks or flanks of prey, while their powerful hind limbs allowed sudden lunges. These adaptations reveal that the Permian apex hunters were as much architects of their environment as inhabitants, shaping the behavior and evolution of herbivorous contemporaries through predatory pressure. The sail-backed Dimetrodon rose above its contemporaries, its towering spines providing more than thermoregulation. Recent studies suggest that its skeletal structure could withstand lateral forces during grappling with struggling prey, allowing it to pin or maneuver herbivores with controlled precision. Jaw analyses show serrated teeth capable of cutting through tough hides and bone, while wear patterns suggest repeated use over a lifetime, indicating these predators often engaged in multiple hunts without catastrophic injury. The fossil record shows healed injuries on Dimetrodon individuals, implying survival from both prey resistance and encounters with rival predators, a testament to the physical resilience and tactical prowess of these land titans. Teeth marks, preserved on skeletal remains, reveal repeated patterns of attack, indicating strategies honed over generations. Inostrancevia, another gorgonopsid from Russia, provides a glimpse into high-latitude predation, with canines measuring over 20 centimeters. These teeth were not merely offensive tools. Their placement and curvature allowed precise targeting of vital areas, suggesting selective hunting rather than indiscriminate biting. Coprolite analysis further reveals a varied diet, with remains of smaller synapsids, amphibians, and even juvenile pariesaurs, reflecting opportunistic adaptability in a landscape where prey abundance fluctuated seasonally. Nightfall brought its own trials, as synapsid hunters leveraged keen senses of smell and vision in the dimming light. Comparative studies of cranial cavities suggest expanded olfactory bulbs, enabling gorgonopsids and dimetrodon to track prey across expansive floodplains under limited visibility. Limb morphology hints at the capability for rapid strikes or sudden adjustments mid-lunge, a combination of strength and agility necessary to subdue nimble prey. Environmental reconstructions indicate that temperature drops at night affected prey behavior, concentrating herbivores near water sources and creating predation hotspots for these nocturnal or crepuscular hunters. Bone beds across Texas and Russia hint at predator density, territoriality, and interactions among rival hunters. Fossil assemblages often cluster several individuals, suggesting either mass mortality events or persistent territorial overlap. Analysis of bite marks and healed injuries points to repeated intraspecific confrontations, where dominance battles may have influenced access to prime hunting grounds. These findings imply that apex predator hierarchies were not static. Competition among contemporaries shaped individual behavior, reproductive success, and ultimately, species evolution. Erosion of floodplains occasionally revealed the fossilized aftermath of confrontations, evidence of both predator skill and prey resilience. Some specimens show defensive adaptations in herbivorous synapsids, such as reinforced skulls or dermal ossifications, likely selected through continuous predation pressure. Trace fossils indicate that juvenile prey sometimes survived predatory attempts, preserving the evolutionary feedback loop whereby predator tactics and prey defenses co-evolved in tandem. The fossil record thus encodes both violent interactions and the slow negotiation of survival that characterized Permian ecosystems. Comparative anatomy suggests that limb structure and muscle attachments allowed lightning-fast strikes despite immense bulk. Synapsids like Ankylosaurus combined sprawling forelimbs for stability, with hind limbs capable of rapid propulsion, producing a balanced platform for ambush attacks. Skeletal morphology also indicates resilience during grappling with prey, with vertebral column structure absorbing torsional stress during encounters. These biomechanical insights underscore the evolutionary sophistication achieved by these early land apex predators long before the appearance of dinosaurs. Climatic shifts in the late Permian pressured these apex predators to adapt, innovate, or perish. Fossil pollen and plant assemblages reveal increasingly arid conditions punctuated by drought cycles, concentrating prey around shrinking water sources. Apex predators responded with shifts in range, hunting technique, and possibly dietary flexibility. Some evidence suggests migratory behavior in search of stable populations, while other synapsids may have specialized in exploiting microhabitats less accessible to competitors, highlighting the dynamic interplay between environmental stressors and predatory evolution. Social or solitary behaviors can be inferred from trackways and bite patterns, hinting at strategies far beyond instinct alone. Some dimetrodon trackways show parallel movement, suggesting at least temporary tolerance or cooperative hunting among individuals, whereas others indicate aggressive spacing and solitary dominance. Similarly, healed injuries on rivals may have resulted from ritualized combat rather than fatal attacks, implying that Permian predators engaged in complex behavioral interactions that shaped survival and reproductive success. The stage was set for evolutionary change, where dominance was both tested and reinforced, leaving enduring traces in the fossil record. These terrestrial titans established patterns of hunting efficiency, territoriality, and adaptation that would influence the rise of the first massive dinosaurs. As they patrolled arid plains, ambushed prey along seasonal rivers, and competed fiercely with one another, the early synapsids sculpted ecosystems that were dynamic, competitive, and brutally effective. From this crucible of Permian dominance, the emergence of giant dinosaur predators loomed on the horizon, promising even more spectacular battles to define the Mesozoic landscapes. Clash of Titans, Triassic giants arise. Steam rose from the cracked riverbeds as Triassic giants ventured forth into a world of both opportunity and peril. In the wake of Earth's greatest extinction, the continents were raw and unsettled, the air thick with volcanic haze and the scent of wet minerals after monsoon rains. From this unstable crucible emerged the first true giants of the New Age reptiles that would test the limits of strength, agility, and endurance on land. The Permian rulers had vanished, their dominance broken by catastrophe, and into the vacuum surged creatures of hybrid design. Some remnants of the synapsid lineage, others the first bold steps of the dinosaurs. These early competitors, driven by hunger and necessity, began rewriting the code of terrestrial power. Beneath jagged cliffs and scattered ferns, Plateosaurus grazed warily, its long neck sweeping across cycads and horsetails in rhythmic arcs. Standing up to 10 meters in length and weighing over 4 tons, this herbivore was no passive grazer. Fossilized forelimbs reveal impressive musculature, suggesting it could rear back in defense, using its tail and hind limbs as weapons against encroaching predators. Its heavy vertebrae, adapted for load-bearing, reflect a body built for endurance rather than speed. Yet its senses were finely tuned to detect motion in the distance. For every peaceful feeding moment, there lingered a latent threat, the faint tremor of approaching danger. Trackways etched into ancient sandstone record the choreography of this danger in vivid relief. Fossilized impressions near modern-day Germany show sudden turns, bursts of speed, and deep gouges in sediment, suggesting panic. Paleontologists interpret these marks as evidence of ambushes, the aftermath of hunts preserved in layers of mud hardened by time. The prey's fleeing footprints often end abruptly, replaced by drag marks or scattered bones, encapsulating the split-second violence of the Triassic struggle. Each trackway is a cinematic fragment, a scene from an age where every movement could mean survival or extinction. The fearsome Postosuchus, towering nearly 5 meters long, embodied the apex potential of archosaur predators. Its skull, nearly a meter in length, housed serrated teeth capable of cleaving flesh and bone with surgical efficiency. Unlike most reptiles, it could stand upright on powerful hind limbs, its semi-bipedal stance granting both height and momentum during attack. Fossil reconstructions from North America reveal massive hip joints and tail musculature, suggesting explosive forward lunges, perhaps targeting the flanks of unsuspecting prey like Plateosaurus. With a bite force estimated to rival that of a crocodile twice its size, Postosuchus defined the balance between raw power and refined precision in a predator still experimenting with form. On rib cages and limb bones, fossilized bite marks tell the repeated story of confrontation, one predator, one victim, locked in evolution's oldest dance. Healed wounds on some Plateosaurus fossils show that survival was possible, that prey occasionally escaped their attackers, bearing scars that told of the constant threat lurking in Triassic shadows. Paleontologists, examining these patterns, infer behavioral intelligence, adaptive strategies in both predator and prey. The fossil record thus becomes a ledger of survival, each injury or healed bone an entry in the ongoing account of natural selection's trials. Seasonal floods transformed the landscape into alternating worlds of plenty and deprivation. During the monsoon months, lush vegetation supported herds of herbivores, drawing predators into predictable ambush points along the riverbanks. But in the long dry season, waterholes shrank to cracked basins where desperation drove species into perilous proximity. Evidence from sediment layers indicates recurring drought cycles, correlating with mass mortality events preserved in bone beds. These environmental rhythms didn't merely shape behavior, they sculpted anatomy, favoring predators that could endure long fasting periods or exploit carcasses when living prey grew scarce. Bone beds scattered across the Triassic strata of Europe and North America offer glimpses of coexistence, competition, and even the uneasy balance of ecosystems in flux. In one site from Germany's Trossingen Formation, dozens of Plateosaurus individuals lie entombed together, possibly victims of sudden flooding or drought. Interspersed among them are fragments of Postosuchus teeth, hinting at scavenging or predation during the event. The fossil layering suggests cycles of death and renewal, the same ground repeatedly claimed by herbivore herds and reclaimed by predators. Such recurring patterns speak of ecological stability emerging from chaos, the first semblance of structured food webs after the Permian's devastation. Comparative anatomy paints a vivid picture of mobility and force. The limb joints of Postosuchus articulate in a way that allowed a forward-driving gait uncommon among earlier reptiles, supported by ossified tendons that stabilized its posture during attack. In contrast, Plateosaurus evolved dense bones with marrow cavities adapted for both strength and metabolic balance. The contrast between predator and prey was thus one of specialization, speed and aggression meeting endurance and fortitude. Each adaptation is refined through countless confrontations, each success or failure leaving a trace in the evolutionary record. Volcanic ash layers scattered across the Triassic deposits act as geological timestamps, recording both catastrophe and rebirth. These ashfalls, radiometrically dated, reveal that the ecosystems housing Postosuchus and Plateosaurus were subject to frequent environmental instability. Climate models based on isotopic data suggest temperature swings exceeding 10 degrees Celsius between seasons, creating conditions of extreme stress. Such volatility spurred innovation. Species that could not adapt perished, while survivors diversified rapidly, leading to the appearance of smaller, more agile early dinosaurs like Eoraptor and Coelophysis, whose fossils mark the first signs of the dominance to come. Some predators, driven by hunger or territorial instinct, turned their aggression toward rivals of their own kind. Fossil evidence of healed cranial fractures and bite marks on Postosuchus skulls supports the theory of intraspecific combat. These contests may have determined dominance, mating rights, or access to limited resources, echoing the social conflicts later seen in larger theropods. Paleobiological reconstructions suggest ritualized combat displays, open-mouth posturing, lateral shoving, precursors to the dominance behaviors that would characterize later Mesozoic predators. In these interactions, we glimpse the first shadows of organized violence beyond mere survival. In Triassic formations, fossilized nests and juvenile specimens hint at emerging parental strategies. Although few species exhibited true nurturing behavior, some evidence suggests nest guarding or site selection based on environmental safety. The presence of juvenile bones alongside adult remains implies temporary protection or group behavior during vulnerable life stages. These evolutionary experiments in care, even if primitive, mark the beginning of behavioral complexity that would flourish in the dinosaurs of later ages. As these Triassic giants clashed and adapted, their world was one of brutal equilibrium, predator and prey locked in perpetual tension, yet both essential to the vitality of their ecosystems. The violent choreography of these interactions forged the ecological structures that would sustain the dinosaurs' dominance for over 150 million years. From the dust of extinction rose a new hierarchy of strength and ingenuity, where power was no longer inherited but earned through resilience. Out of these Triassic crucibles, the foundations of future predator innovation were laid, setting the stage for the Jurassic's even greater titans to redefine what it meant to rule the Earth. Jurassic juggernauts, land giants in collision, mist curled among the towering conifers as the first rays of dawn illuminated colossal shapes moving across the floodplains. Massive sauropods emerged from the shadows, their elongated necks sweeping in slow arcs as they grazed on foliage far above the ground. The sheer scale of these creatures, Diplodocus stretching over 25 meters and Brachiosaurus towering nearly 22 meters, transformed the landscape, flattening ferns and low-growing trees beneath their weight. In this lush Jurassic world, size was both protection and vulnerability, drawing predators while also enabling these giants to dominate vegetation-rich corridors. The floodplains hummed with life, yet danger lurked in the depths of rivers and the edges of the forests, where stealth and patience defined survival. Diplodocus herds stretched for hundreds of meters, a slow-moving wall of muscle, bone, and sinew. Juveniles clustered near the center, protected by the towering adults, who swung tails with precision when threatened. Fossilized trackways suggest coordinated movement, possibly indicating social structures that reduced predation risk. These herds were living fortresses, yet even their size could not entirely deter the predators that had begun to specialize in exploiting weaknesses, from stragglers to injured individuals. Every step they took was a negotiation with gravity, energy, and vigilance. A delicate balance maintained over millions of years of evolutionary refinement. Shallow rivers glistened with the reflections of stealthy predators, eyes scanning for weakness in the massive herds. Allosaurus, with serrated teeth over 20 centimeters long and a skull built for precision strikes, patrolled these floodplains with predatory efficiency. Fossilized limb bones indicate muscular forelimbs capable of grappling with struggling prey, while hind limbs delivered bursts of acceleration. Riverbanks provided ambush points, where patience and cunning often outweighed raw speed. Even juvenile sauropods were at risk, and the fossil record preserves telltale bite marks along vertebrae and rib cages, evidence of predation attempts interrupted, completed, or failed. Claw marks etched into fossilized logs reveal the brutal efficiency of Allosaurus attacks on juvenile or sick individuals. These predators did not merely kill, they engaged in precise strikes, often targeting vital areas. Biomechanical reconstructions show the skull could withstand torsional stress during violent struggles, allowing it to deliver repeated blows without fracturing. Such evidence highlights the evolutionary arms race between predator and prey, a dynamic tension where size, strength, and strategy are continually tested against each other. Tracks of early crocodilians trace calculated ambush points along riverbanks, suggesting remarkable patience and environmental awareness. Genera like Goniopholis and Pelagosaurus utilized shallow waters to conceal movement, striking suddenly at unsuspecting herbivores drinking at the edge. Fossilized sediment layers show repeated congregations of predators along key river crossings, implying territorial behavior and an intimate understanding of the landscape. These early crocodilians, though smaller than theropods, played a crucial role in shaping the behavior of herbivore herds, forcing adaptations in vigilance, movement, and herd cohesion. Evidence from fossilized vertebrae shows repeated stress patterns, indicating long-term adaptations to supporting immense body mass. Sauropods evolved vertebral structures reinforced with air sacs, distributing weight efficiently while reducing metabolic cost. Limb bones bear sculpted muscle attachment sites, reflecting the immense forces needed to move, rear, or pivot during encounters with predators. These adaptations reveal that Jurassic giants were not merely passive titans. Their anatomy allowed controlled motion, defense, and engagement with their environment, highlighting the interplay of evolution, physiology, and survival. Seasonal storms transformed the landscape, concentrating herbivores and creating sudden, high-risk encounters with predators. Fossilized floodplain layers indicate rapid sediment deposition, capturing moments of struggle, movement, and predation, frozen in time. Herbivore herds sought refuge along elevated ridges, while predators exploited these bottlenecks to maximize hunting efficiency. These dynamic conditions produced repeated opportunities for selective predation, shaping not only behavior but long-term evolutionary trends in both predator and prey species. Coprolite analysis provides insight into diet, revealing that even apex predators occasionally scavenged to supplement hunting. Remains of juvenile sauropods, small ornithischians, and fish have been found within fossilized feces of Allosaurus and other theropods. Such dietary flexibility would have been essential in periods of drought or prey scarcity, underscoring the adaptive strategies that allowed these predators to thrive in complex ecosystems. The interplay between hunting and scavenging created selective pressures that encouraged both ingenuity and opportunism. Bite marks preserved on tail vertebrae and rib cages suggest complex predator-prey interactions beyond simple consumption. In some cases, healed injuries indicate escape from predation attempts, demonstrating resilience and the effectiveness of defensive strategies like tail strikes or coordinated herd defense. Paleontologists interpret these scars as evidence of repeated encounters where predator learning and prey adaptation co-evolved in an endless cycle, sculpting both morphology and behavior over generations. Nests, preserved in the fossil record, demonstrate strategies for protecting the young, even amid constant environmental and predatory pressure. Diplodocus and other sauropods appear to have selected nesting sites near elevated terrain or floodplain margins, minimizing access for predators. Juvenile bones found alongside adult remains suggest that at least temporary social structures existed to safeguard vulnerable individuals. These strategies hint at the evolution of early social behaviors, reflecting the importance of group survival in ecosystems dominated by enormous predators. Erosion patterns in sedimentary layers allow reconstruction of floodplain topography, revealing likely paths of both herbivores and predators. Paleogeographic modelling suggests that predator patrol routes, water sources, and feeding grounds were intricately linked, producing predictable zones of interaction. Such spatial dynamics shaped evolutionary pressures, forcing herbivores to adapt movement, vigilance, and herd density, while predators refined stalking, ambush, and energy-efficient hunting techniques. This interplay underpinned the complexity of Jurassic food webs, marking a new stage in terrestrial ecological sophistication. Collisions of these giants sent tails swinging, jaws snapping, and herds scattering, intensifying ecological and evolutionary pressures and hinting at the sophisticated predation strategies yet to come in the late Jurassic. Every movement, every strike, every calculated withdrawal contributed to an invisible ledger of survival, one that would dictate the dominance of the species for millions of years. From these ancient floodplains, the foundations of truly colossal predator-prey dynamics were forged, setting the stage for the apex hunters and titanic confrontations that would define the final acts of the Jurassic. Skies of fury, aerial predators take flight. Sunlight glinted off membranous wings as pterosaurs wheeled above the cliffs, casting long shadows over the floodplains and rivers below. The Jurassic skies, expansive and unpredictable, had become a theatre of competition where aerial predators mastered the three-dimensional realm with astonishing skill. From the smallest pterodactylus to the titanic pteranodon, these creatures were the apex hunters of the air, each wingbeat a calculated act of survival. The cliffs provided launching points, thermals carried them effortlessly across valleys, and the rivers teemed with fish that demanded precision and daring to capture. Flight had opened a new dimension for predation, and with it came both freedom and peril. Pteranodon stretched its wingspan over 10 meters, banking sharply to intercept a school of fish skimming the river's surface. Fossilized beak morphology suggests remarkable precision, allowing these giants to snatch prey with minimal energy expenditure. Wing bones, hollow yet reinforced with struts, balanced lightness and structural integrity, enabling both long glides and rapid aerial maneuvers. These predators were not merely gliders. They were strategic hunters, leveraging air currents, prey movement, and social observation to maximize hunting success in a complex ecosystem. Juvenile pterosaurs learned flight through repeated trial and error, often under the watchful eye of adults defending prime hunting territory. Fossilized growth rings in wing bones indicate rapid development in some species, allowing juveniles to compete for food and territory at an early age. Observations of articulated skeletons reveal the musculature and tendon structures critical for launching, landing, and maintaining control mid-air. For the young, survival depended on learning both aerial agility and the subtle hierarchies established among older competitors. Intricate vascular networks emerge in wing membranes preserved in exceptional fossils, suggesting that thermoregulation played a critical role in sustained flight and high-altitude hunting. These networks, visible in Rhamphorhynchus and Pteranodon fossils, would have allowed rapid heat exchange during long flights, preventing overheating during dives or prolonged gliding. Analysis of microstructure indicates that blood flow could be finely controlled, balancing energy expenditure with predatory efficiency. Additionally, this thermoregulatory system may have enabled these predators to hunt at varying altitudes, exploiting prey inaccessible to less adapted competitors. Such physiological sophistication highlights an evolutionary edge, allowing aerial predators to dominate both spatially and ecologically across Jurassic landscapes. Within preserved skulls, jaw and crest features reveal adaptations for both aerodynamic function and social signaling among competitors. In species like Rhamphorhynchus, tail veins may have provided stability during high-speed chases, while crests serve to intimidate rivals or attract mates. These anatomical innovations indicate that evolution in the air followed parallel pressures to those on land: efficiency, dominance, and survival. Every curve of bone and sinew was a record of countless generations refining the art of aerial life. Territorial disputes sometimes escalated into aerial duels, with talons and beaks clashing mid-flight in displays of strength and dominance. Fossilized injuries, including healed fractures of wing phalanges and jaw damage, confirm that pterosaurs engaged in direct combat rather than passive displays alone. These confrontations, while perilous, were essential for securing access to feeding grounds, nesting sites, and mating opportunities, illustrating a complex behavioral repertoire that rivaled even terrestrial predators in sophistication. Trackways preserved near ancient lake shores indicate repeated landings and takeoffs, shedding light on hunting patterns and feeding behavior. Shallow mudflats show impressions of webbed feet and clawed talons, often associated with concentrated feeding zones. Paleontologists interpret these traces as evidence of cooperative or competitive behavior, with multiple individuals exploiting the same rich resource while maneuvering for advantage. These sites provide a window into the everyday struggles that defined aerial life, far beyond dramatic mid-air battles. Wing bones, hollow yet reinforced, demonstrate the delicate balance between lightweight flight and the structural demands of predation. The pneumaticity of the skeleton reduced mass without sacrificing strength, enabling sudden dives, sharp turns, and long-distance glides. Comparative studies with modern birds reveal similar mechanical principles, yet pterosaurs combined them with enormous size, from 2-meter wingspans to giants exceeding 10 meters. These adaptations allowed for both pursuit and opportunistic feeding, expanding their ecological impact across rivers, lakes, and coastal plains. Seasonal shifts in prey availability drove migration patterns, forcing pterosaurs to compete over shrinking feeding grounds. Isotopic analysis of fossilized bone suggests predictable patterns in diet, with species tracking fish schools, crustaceans, and occasionally carrion. During lean months, territorial disputes intensified, forcing younger or weaker individuals to seek alternative foraging zones. These fluctuations highlight the interconnectedness of aerial and terrestrial ecosystems as the behavior of fish, reptiles, and herbivores influence the aerial predators above. Evidence of healed wing fractures hints at the perils of aerial combat and the remarkable resilience of these flying predators. Even minor injuries could compromise flight, making survival precarious. Fossil records indicate that some individuals endured multiple injuries over their lifetimes, suggesting both recovery and continued engagement in territorial or predatory challenges. This resilience demonstrates the evolutionary premium placed on skill, strength, and adaptability in the aerial domain. Interactions with fish, smaller reptiles, and fellow pterosaurs created a complex aerial food web, shaping evolutionary pressure from multiple angles. Pterosaurs were not only hunters but also competitors, scavengers, and occasional prey. Fossilized stomach contents and coprolites confirm diet diversity, while nesting sites on cliffs reveal spatial strategies to avoid predation. The three-dimensional environment of the air demanded a constant balance between risk and reward, teaching early aerial predators the fine calculus of survival. The conquest of the skies by predators triggered changes on land, setting the stage for increasingly specialized terrestrial adaptations. Vegetation, herbivore movement, and predator behavior all shifted in response to these aerial hunters, reinforcing the coevolution of multiple ecosystems. From cliffs to floodplains, the interplay of air and land became a defining feature of Jurassic life, demonstrating that mastery of one realm imposed evolutionary demands across another. These aerial confrontations not only expanded ecological niches, but also foreshadowed the sophisticated predator-prey strategies that would dominate the Cretaceous. Cretaceous carnage, titans of the land, dust clouds rose with every thunderous step, and the ground itself seemed to recoil from the violence of pursuit. Across the floodplains and fern plains of late Cretaceous North America, colossal forms clashed in rhythmic, seismic intervals, the slow, inevitable cadence of predator and prey. Herds of hadrosaurs bolted through the haze, their footfalls churning ancient mud into frothing channels of silt. Behind them, the apex hunter Tyrannosaurus rex gave chase, its every movement a convergence of precision, power, and inevitability. Here, on this trembling earth, survival was measured not in moments, but in collisions of will, of evolution, of muscle against time. Spanning the fertile floodplains of Laramidia, life unfolded in fierce competition, its balance shaped by the dominance of immense carnivores. Each valley and basin was a theatre of interlocking dominions, from the armoured plains where Ankylosaurus lumbered beneath dense cycads to the open lowlands where ceratopsians grazed in tense vigilance. The predator-prey ratios were narrow, roughly one apex carnivore for every 100 herbivores, a reflection of the energy demanded by creatures that lived at the edge of endurance. Rivers, thick with silt and decay, carried the remains of countless confrontations downstream, layering sediments that would one day tell stories of pursuit, struggle, and consequence. Skeletal reconstructions of Tyrannosaurus rex reveal an architecture of optimized destruction, massive skulls, fused vertebrae, and muscle attachments designed for catastrophic force. Its jaw mechanism, studied through digital finite element analysis, could deliver more than 35,000 newtons of pressure, capable of puncturing bone and immobilizing prey with a single bite. The fusion of its nasal bones reduced flexion, channeling stress through the skull like the framework of an engineered bridge. Even its tail, counterbalancing the enormous head, acted as a dynamic stabilizer during lunging strikes. In its anatomy, evolution had distilled brutality into structure, efficiency into art. Chemical signatures preserved in fossilized bone tissue expose metabolic rates far higher than those of typical reptiles, hinting at warm-blooded energy demands. Oxygen isotope ratios extracted from T, Rex, and contemporaneous species indicate sustained internal temperature regulation, more akin to modern birds than lizards. This elevated metabolism required near-constant intake of high-protein prey, which may explain both the territorial ferocity and the scavenging opportunism found in isotopic analyses of fossilized remains. Even the spacing of growth rings in bone cross-sections reveals bursts of rapid development, a biological urgency in creatures evolved for dominance but constrained by geological time. Further south, in what is now Patagonia, Giganotosaurus carolinii reigned over humid forests and floodplains where sauropods herded in uneasy formations. At nearly 13 meters long, this southern titan matched or exceeded its northern rival in scale, but differed in predatory style. Its elongated jaws and serrated teeth acted as slicing instruments rather than crushing tools, designed to inflict massive blood loss through slashing wounds. Fossil trackways suggest coordinated movement among smaller theropods in its shadow, perhaps evidence of opportunistic following scavengers drawn to the echoes of a kill. Biomechanical simulations show that these predators relied not on speed, but on timing and precision, delivering lethal strikes at close range. Musculature reconstructions demonstrate that both Tyrannosaurus and Giganotosaurus favored ambush tactics. Silent approach, explosive acceleration, and momentum-driven impact. High-resolution models reveal the physics of those moments: torsional stress through the pelvis, recoil transmitted through tail vertebrae, and bone-crushing energy dissipated in milliseconds. The fight between predator and prey was less a chase than a test of structural endurance, a contest where survival depended on how long bone could resist force. Among their prey, the armoured Ankylosaurus and the horned Triceratops countered with evolutionary fortresses of bone and keratin, turning survival into an arms race of form. Ankylosaurus, nearly 8 meters long and encased in osteoderms, wielded a tail club dense enough to shatter bone, its swing force exceeding 2 tons of kinetic energy. Triceratops, with its parietal frill and three-pronged defense, turned head-on collisions into ritualized combat, not only against predators, but within its own species. Fossilized bone beds suggest herding behavior and mutual defense, a rare cooperative adaptation in an age dominated by individual struggle. Paleopathological evidence, healed fractures, puncture marks, and regrown bone reveals that survival often depended on endurance more than strength. The fossilized skeleton known as Su, the largest T, Rex ever found, bears traces of infection, broken ribs, and healed jaw injuries, proof of a life defined by repeated conflict. Some wounds align with tooth spacing from other Tyrannosaurus, hinting at intraspecific combat over territory or mates. In these bones, paleontologists read a narrative of resilience creatures so evolved for violence that even their healing became a weaponized adaptation. Climatic fluctuations and shifting flora occurring as the Cretaceous neared its close, tightened ecological pressures, driving predator populations into unstable competition. The spread of flowering plants reshaped vegetation patterns, altering the abundance and migratory behavior of herbivores. Drier intervals in the late Maastrichtian compressed ecosystems, forcing predators into closer proximity and triggering more frequent confrontations. The fossil record shows a decline in diversity among large theropods even before the asteroid's impact, the result not of sudden catastrophe, but of ecosystems strained to their limits. Volcanic activity from the Deccan Traps introduced atmospheric instability, dimming skies, and altering global carbon cycles that rippled through the food chain. Temperature differentials between hemispheres forced migratory shifts, and isotope analysis of marine sediments reveals disrupted nutrient flows that reached even the inland plains. Each disruption magnified the tension among apex predators species tuned to perfection yet vulnerable to imbalance. In this precarious equilibrium, the mightiest hunters faced the limits of their evolutionary design. Even as terrestrial battles reached their evolutionary climax, distant coasts echoed with the roars of another kind, marine predators that ruled where sunlight fractured the waves. Beneath those shifting tides, ancient reptiles prepared for their own reigns of terror, adapting the tools of land warfare to a weightless, liquid battlefield. The story of dominance was about to change domains, descending from roaring plains into the blue-black abyss, where evolution would once again rewrite the meaning of power. Mesozoic seas, leviathans in deadly pursuit, while Cretaceous skies echoed with the thunder of Tyrannosaurus steppes, the oceans below churned with leviathans that hunted in near silence. Below the glimmer of surface sunlight, a realm of perpetual tension unfolded, a kingdom ruled not by raw strength, but by grace and precision. Here, in the mineral-rich depths of the western interior seaway and the vast Tethys Ocean, marine reptiles evolved into machines of fluid lethality. The boundaries between predator and prey blurred into motion, every ripple concealing an instant of death. Through the mineral blue haze of the western interior seaway, Mosasaurus hoffmanni drifted with deceptive ease, its paddle limbs propelling it through liquid corridors of light. This apex hunter, stretching up to 17 meters, wielded a skull lined with double-hinged jaws capable of swallowing prey whole. Its fluke, a crescent-shaped tail like that of a modern shark, generated bursts of acceleration that shattered the stillness of the sea. Each movement was calculated a coil of muscle, a sudden strike, the silence after impact. Hydrodynamic studies of mosasaur fossils reveal vertebral columns arranged for power rather than endurance, optimized for short, devastating ambushes. The ratio of thrust to drag in digital reconstructions suggests a design that prioritized agility over speed, a hunter built to dominate in confined coastal waters. Chemical traces on fossilized teeth further indicate a diet that spanned from ammonites to other marine reptiles, reinforcing its role as the ocean's supreme opportunist. Unlike the terrestrial predators that relied on terrain and weight, the mosasaur's battlefield was frictionless and infinite. Far older predators, the pliosaurs, had already perfected ambush predation long before mosasaurs claimed their reign. Kronosaurus queenslandicus, with its massive skull spanning nearly 3 meters, embodied raw hydrodynamic force, a reptile that struck like a battering ram from the abyss. Its short neck and broad flippers turned its entire body into a weapon, one capable of instant acceleration from stillness to slaughter. Within its fossilized stomachs, the remains of turtles, fish, and smaller ichthyosaurs reveal an ecosystem that revolved around the physics of momentum and shock. In the shadows of these hunters moved the ichthyosaurs, descendants of land reptiles that had long since surrendered to the sea's embrace. Shonisaurus popularis, one of the largest of its kind, at over 20 meters, glided through Triassic oceans in effortless arcs, its body shaped by evolution into an almost perfect instrument of pelagic life. Its eyes, proportionally larger than those of any other vertebrate, captured the faintest shimmer of prey hundreds of meters below. Long before dolphins or whales, these reptiles mastered the art of living in endless motion, their bodies in equilibrium between breadth and depth. Microscopic analysis of ichthyosaur eye rings reveals adaptations for extreme depth perception. Each bony plate in the scleral ring is adjusted for light intensity and pressure. This biological architecture enabled hunting in near total darkness, where only silhouettes and bioluminescence betrayed movement. In these depths, prey and predator were locked in sensory warfare, echolocation-like detection, the shimmer of reflected light, and the vibration of passing fins. Fossilized embryos preserved within female ichthyosaurs offer haunting evidence of live birth in the open ocean, a reproductive leap that ensured continuity even far from shore. In open waters where no refuge existed, survival depended on the mastery of motion. Marine reptiles had to understand the geometry of pursuit, how to anticipate turns, how to strike in 3 dimensions, how to use currents as weapons. Paleohydrodynamic simulations show that mosasaurs and pliosaurs exploited thermoclines, the invisible boundaries between warm and cold layers, to conceal their approach. To hunt in these layered oceans required instinct elevated to spatial intuition, a choreography of death where hesitation meant extinction. Chemical isotopes extracted from fossil teeth reveal that these predators were not static inhabitants but global wanderers. Seasonal shifts in oxygen 1:8 and carbon 1:3 ratios indicate migrations that spanned entire proto-oceans, from the tropical shallows of the Tethys to the cooler northern shelves. Some species may have followed schools of fish across hemispheres, others tracked the spawning cycles of ammonites. This planetary scale of predation mirrors modern whale migrations, an early expression of the biological drive to follow abundance across an ever-changing planet. Even the prey were innovators in this deadly game. Ammonites evolved intricate shell coiling to resist crushing jaws. Belemnites developed jet propulsion that launched them from danger. Early teleost fish honed lateral lines that detected pressure waves from approaching predators. Each adaptation forced the hunters to evolve further sharper senses, more efficient musculature, and faster neural responses. Evolution in the Mesozoic ocean was not gradual, it was an arms race of perception and motion, sculpting the perfect predator from trial and attrition. The fossilized remains of an Elasmosaurus and Mosasaurus entangled in mutual death tell a story frozen in stone, predator and prey locked in evolution's final equation. Analysis of their preserved positions suggests that the mosasaur's skull was crushed in the struggle, the elasmosaur's neck coiled in a desperate counterstrike. This fossil tableau captures not just violence, but balance, a visual echo of nature's relentless symmetry, where every killer meets its counterpart. In such encounters, the ocean itself seemed to hold its breath. During the zenith of the Cretaceous seas, gradients in temperature and oxygen levels started reshaping marine dominance. Hypoxic zones spread across continental shelves, forcing predators into deeper waters and favouring species that could tolerate fluctuating pressures and colder thermoclimates. This environmental tightening rewarded intelligence, coordination, and adaptability traits that foreshadowed the coming dominance of marine mammals after the reptiles' fall. The ocean was preparing for another transformation, silent but inevitable. In these liquid arenas of pursuit, every heartbeat was both survival and surrender, a testament to life's unending improvisation. The ocean's deadly ballet mirrored the complexity of terrestrial and aerial predator interactions, uniting the planet's ecosystems in a shared choreography of motion and adaptation. Across land, air, and sea, evolution refined its instruments, each realm echoing the others in an unbroken pattern of pursuit and transformation. Beneath the waves, the echoes of those leviathans still linger, reminders of an age when the sea itself was alive with the art of predation. Predators of the night, nocturnal giants emerge. Shadows thickened beneath the canopy, and a hush fell over the Permian undergrowth, broken only by subtle movement. The world had shifted from the open expanses of sea and land into a theatre of darkness, where every sound, scent, and glimmer of motion could dictate life or death. Predators that thrived here were shaped less by brute strength than by the quiet precision of sensory mastery. In this nocturnal realm, survival was a game of anticipation, patience, and unparalleled perception. A sudden flicker of motion betrayed the presence of predators whose eyes pierced darkness like living lenses. Fossil evidence shows enlarged optic lobes and expanded sclerotic rings in coelophysoid theropods, suggesting vision adapted to low-light conditions. Muscular limbs allowed stealthy, deliberate movement across soft sediment, enabling these hunters to approach prey without alerting even the most vigilant herbivores. The night's silence was both a cloak and a weapon, and predators wielded it with expert understanding. In dense fern thickets, Dimetrodon shifted with calculated slowness, every muscle tensed for a silent strike. Though often depicted as a daytime predator, its skeletal structure hints at nocturnal forays, supported by thermoregulatory sails that could adjust body temperature during cooler nights. Juvenile vertebrates and small amphibians became its quarry, and the predator's success depended on energy efficiency and timing rather than overwhelming force. Cranial cavities preserved in fossils demonstrate olfactory and optic expansions that hint at sophisticated night-sensing abilities. Synapsids and early therapsids possessed enlarged bulbs for scent detection, capable of interpreting subtle chemical traces across the landscape. Paired with forward-facing eyes, these adaptations allowed predators to track hidden or partially obscured prey, a combination of senses that transformed the nighttime ecosystem into a high-stakes chessboard. On the river's margins, herbivores coiled and braced for defense, their defensive plates shimmering under faint moonlight. Parasaurs and early ankylosaur relatives relied on vigilance and structural adaptations to deter stealth attacks. Fossil evidence indicates healed bite marks and puncture wounds, demonstrating that nocturnal predation was effective, yet often contested. Predators were forced to constantly refine techniques to circumvent these defensive fortifications. Fine impressions in sediment trackways demonstrate deliberate, whisper-quiet steps, a choreography of survival unseen in daytime. Footprints of small kaolophysoids and nocturnal synapsids reveal patterns of careful pacing, direction changes, and predator-prey encounters frozen in stone. These trace fossils offer a rare glimpse into behavioral ecology, showing that motion, rhythm, and spatial awareness were as vital as teeth or claws in the art of night hunting. Even the tiniest nocturnal hunters exploited shadows, hunting amphibians and insects that flourished after dusk. This ecological layering created a complex web where size alone did not determine dominance. Nocturnal activity spread across multiple trophic levels, influencing the evolution of prey behavior, defensive structures, and sensory capabilities in both large and small species. Enlarged eye sockets and forward-directed vision in kaolophysoid fossils indicate precision depth perception essential for night hunting. Combined with limb morphology adapted for quiet locomotion, these predators executed ambushes with unparalleled efficiency. Their prey often had little warning, relying solely on reflexes and armor to survive fleeting attacks. These adaptations illustrate that nocturnal ecosystems demanded cognitive refinement and biomechanical optimization in ways daytime environments did not. Humidity and chill-shaped activity cycles, forcing predators to adjust timing, patience, and strategy in response to environmental rhythms. Fossilized plant matter and isotope analysis indicate fluctuating night temperatures and moisture levels, affecting prey visibility, movement patterns, and predator metabolic rates. Such constraints further reinforced stealth and sensory specialization as keys to survival, shaping evolution in subtle but profound ways. The night stretched silently over predator and prey, revealing that survival depended on cunning as much as strength. Evolution had sculpted creatures capable of exploiting darkness, while armored herbivores developed responses equally sophisticated. These nocturnal encounters, though hidden from the light of day, laid the groundwork for future predator-prey dynamics in the Triassic and beyond. As predators mastered the night, their innovations foreshadowed the complex interplay of strategy, defense, and sensory acuity that would define apex battles across all of Mesozoic Earth. Moonlight glinted off dew-laden ferns as small therapsids practiced silent hunting, sharpening reflexes that would ripple through evolutionary time. Fossils from burrowed dens suggest nocturnal ambush points, showing that some predators learned to exploit vertical space and cover for both hunting and evasion. Bite marks and claw scars preserved in skeletal remains indicate that night hunting imposed unique, selective pressures, favoring speed, timing, and sensory integration over raw strength. Bats, birds, and modern analogues may not have existed, but fossil evidence of nocturnal activity suggests early experimentation with circadian partitioning. Small vertebrates that foraged after dusk forced predators to diversify strategies, while prey species concurrently developed heightened vigilance and behavioral adaptations. Isotopic data from fossilized teeth indicate nighttime feeding patterns in some synapsids, confirming that darkness was a fully exploited ecological niche. The rhythmic pulse of nocturnal ecosystems created evolutionary pressure on predator and prey alike, shaping morphology, behavior, and even reproductive strategies. Predators with enhanced night vision and olfaction thrived alongside armored or highly alert prey, creating dynamic and tightly coupled interactions. Fossilized gut contents reveal a surprising diversity of prey items, from amphibians to juvenile reptiles, emphasizing that nighttime hunting broadened the dietary spectrum and reinforced ecological complexity. Under a canopy where even a whisper could betray presence, the night demanded acute awareness of every shadow, scent, and sound. Adaptations in vision, hearing, and olfactory sensitivity coalesced into a predatory toolkit unlike anything seen in daylight ecosystems. This interplay of stealth, sensory mastery, and environmental adaptation illustrates that Mesozoic evolution was as much about exploiting temporal niches as it was about size or strength. By the time the first light of dawn touched the Permian floodplains, the nocturnal giants had vanished into shadow, leaving behind evidence of a world as brutal and precise as any daylight confrontation. These predators' mastery of darkness laid the foundation for more sophisticated hunting strategies in later Mesozoic lineages, showing that survival often depended on ingenuity, adaptation, and timing. Life under the cloak of night had tested skill, perception, and endurance, and in doing so, had reshaped the balance between predator and prey in ways that would echo across millions of years. Armored titans, defensive giants, and their foes. Sunlight glinted off ridged armor, casting shifting patterns across the Cretaceous plains as colossal herbivores stirred. Massive ankylosaurs shifted slowly, each movement amplified by the weight of osteoderms and bony plates, designed to repel even the most determined predator. In the dappled light of dense floodplain forests, their presence was both a challenge and an invitation, a living fortress that tested the ingenuity of any carnivore bold enough to attempt an attack. Fossil evidence suggests these early armored giants were not merely passive, but dynamic participants in predator-prey interactions, capable of both shielding themselves and delivering counterattacks with devastating tail swings. In the dim light beneath forested slopes, ankylosaurs marched with purpose, their tail clubs swinging with mechanical precision. The distribution of ossified tendons and reinforced vertebrae allowed these structures to function like levered hammers, delivering bone-crushing impacts. Biomechanical modeling indicates that a single strike could generate enough torque to break ribs or damage the limbs of pursuing tyrannosaurids. Herding behavior amplified defensive effectiveness, allowing individuals to cover one another's flanks while predators attempted to isolate a target, demonstrating a sophisticated level of social coordination previously underestimated in herbivorous dinosaurs. Predators studied the armored giants with patience, circling and probing weak points exposed by gaps in bone and keratin. Tyrannosaurus rex, with its unparalleled bite force and forward-facing binocular vision, sought to exploit vulnerabilities along flanks and underbellies, yet osteoderm arrangements often thwarted such strategies. Abelisaurids, by contrast, relied on agility and repeated slashing attacks, aiming to wear down defenses over time. Fossilized scars and healed wounds on ankylosaur specimens provide a vivid record of these repeated encounters, revealing that survival was as much about endurance and resilience as it was about brute force. Scarred osteoderms, preserved in fossils, reveal repeated strikes from jaws and claws that failed to breach the ultimate defense. High-resolution CT scans show microfractures where predators struck, indicating significant stress, yet no catastrophic failure, a testament to evolutionary refinement. Some osteoderms exhibit evidence of remodeling, suggesting that ankylosaurs could repair and strengthen armor over time, an adaptation that turned every predator assault into a test of both persistence and strategy. These structural marvels transformed the Cretaceous plains into a theater of tactical confrontation, where every engagement could dictate life or death. Muscle attachments and vertebral structure of the tail suggest an evolutionary emphasis on both offense and deterrence. Studies reveal that ankylosaur tail clubs could achieve angular velocities sufficient to stun predators without compromising balance, while the vertebral column absorbed shocks efficiently to prevent self-injury. Comparative analyses with modern analogues, such as armored mammals and reptiles, indicate that these adaptations represented a peak in evolutionary engineering, combining protection, mobility, and counterattack potential. The sophistication of these mechanisms underscores the co-evolutionary pressures that defined predator-prey dynamics during the late Cretaceous. Paleontologists uncover evidence of coordinated predator behavior, where timing, leverage, and positioning determined the outcome of encounters. Trackway analyses reveal stalking patterns and approach angles, suggesting that predators evaluated environmental conditions and armor layout before committing to a strike. Some fossils show simultaneous bite marks from multiple attackers, implying cooperative hunting or opportunistic pack-like behavior, though the specifics of social coordination remain debated. The fossil record thus provides a window into both sides of this evolutionary arms race, illustrating adaptation in action. Trace fossils indicate ambushes near riverbanks and dense vegetation, highlighting how terrain amplified defensive advantages. Ankylosaurs exploited natural cover, limiting predator mobility and funneling attacks into zones where tail strikes and flank defenses were most effective. Sediment analysis, coupled with fossil placement, shows that these ambush strategies were repeatable and likely selected over generations, further shaping both predator and prey morphology. Environmental context, therefore, was as critical as anatomical defense, creating a triad of success: armor, behavior, and landscape. A detailed study of bone tissue uncovers repeated stress patterns consistent with surviving multiple predator engagements. Osteohistology reveals microcracks healed with dense, remodeled bone, indicating that ankylosaurs endured numerous attacks throughout their lifespan. These insights highlight a long-term, iterative battle between predatory innovation and defensive durability, revealing that the evolutionary arms race was not a single moment, but a persistent, generational struggle. Each healed injury represents not just survival, but the passing of resilient traits to subsequent generations, perpetuating the cycle of challenge and adaptation. The interplay of predator strategy and defensive evolution created an ongoing escalation visible in successive species across the late Cretaceous. Over time, ankylosaurs developed increasingly dense armor and more powerful tail clubs, while predators refined cranial mechanics, claw precision, and hunting tactics. Fossil comparisons across continents indicate convergent evolution, where similar predator-prey dynamics produced analogous adaptations in unrelated species. This evolutionary feedback loop highlights the constant tension shaping morphology, behavior, and survival strategies, demonstrating that no species could dominate without responding to the other's innovations. Isotopic analysis of teeth and bones confirms that certain predators specialized in armored prey, shaping niche partitioning within ecosystems. Variations in nitrogen and carbon isotope ratios suggest that T. rex populations targeted large ankylosaurs preferentially, while smaller theropods focused on juveniles or less protected species. Such dietary specialization drove ecological diversity and influenced population structures, ensuring that both predator and prey evolved in tandem. The chemical record preserves not only what these creatures ate, but also the intensity and selectivity of their predatory pressures. Each clash, though deadly, was also a lesson in evolutionary adaptation, driving the development of heavier armor, more agile maneuvers, and sharper predatory skills. The fossil record captures a dialogue between offense and defense, a testament to millions of years of iterative improvement. Ankylosaurs became mobile fortresses, while their adversaries evolved the cunning, patience, and precision to challenge them. This co-evolutionary narrative underscores that survival was never guaranteed, and innovation was the currency of existence in these prehistoric landscapes. Evolution forged defenses of remarkable complexity, and predators responded with novel tactics, continuing the relentless cycle of challenge and countermeasure. From osteoderm fortifications to tail club mechanics, and from ambush strategies to cooperative hunting, the late Cretaceous was defined by the interplay of armored titans and their formidable foes. Yet even as these terrestrial battles raged, life's broader theatre included simultaneous struggles across oceans and skies, hinting at the interconnected drama that spanned every corner of the Mesozoic world, and setting the stage for the synthesis of predator evolution in the final chapter. Ambush artists, masters of stealth and strategy, shadowed under the canopy, small theropods lingered, their senses tuned to every tremor of unsuspecting herbivores. The late Cretaceous forests and floodplains were alive with subtle movement, the rustle of leaves, the shift of light across ferns, the faint vibrations of massive herbivores trudging nearby. Here, predators like Velociraptor mongoliensis and Deinonychus antihopus perfected the art of patience, remaining nearly invisible as they assessed angles, timing, and terrain before committing to the fatal strike. Unlike the thunderous confrontations of larger predators, survival for these hunters relied on cunning, intelligence, and meticulous observation, a game of lethal chess played beneath the shadows of giants. Velociraptor mongoliensis exhibited remarkable binocular vision, allowing depth perception crucial for timing a lethal pounce. The structure of the skull and placement of the eyes gave it the capacity to judge distances accurately, ensuring a claw strike landed precisely on the prey's vulnerable areas. Paleontologists have reconstructed the optic nerves and orbital sockets to reveal that vision in this species rivaled that of modern birds of prey, a necessity for nocturnal and crepuscular hunting. In combination with acute hearing, this sensory arsenal made the Velociraptor a predator capable of executing complex ambushes even in dim light. Clawed forelimbs and semi-retractable talons provided both grip and precision, converting speed into unstoppable strikes. Each claw was reinforced with keratin sheaths, while muscle attachments along the forelimb ensured that grasping and slashing were powerful yet precise. Biomechanical modeling demonstrates that these limbs could support both climbing onto prey and stabilizing the body during high-speed lunges. Such adaptations reveal that these theropods were not simply opportunistic hunters, they were specialized tools of predation, evolution, honed into lethal efficiency. Trackways and fossil assemblages reveal early examples of social hunting tactics among small predators. Multiple overlapping footprints, sometimes aligned with juvenile prey species, indicate coordinated ambushes that increased hunting success. The arrangement of these tracks suggests communication, planning, and possibly role differentiation within groups, such as flanking maneuvers or herd distraction. This predatory collaboration indicates cognitive sophistication far beyond simple instinct, showing that strategy was as critical as strength or size in these ecosystems. Dense underbrush and shifting light offered concealment, enabling ambushes that even armored prey could not anticipate. Forest understories, riverbanks, and broken terrain provided natural camouflage that these predators exploited with exceptional patience. Modern studies of predator-prey dynamics reinforce the advantage of stealth in heterogeneous environments, and Mesozoic landscapes presented an early, dynamic template for such behavior. The theropods' muted coloration and feather patterns likely augmented these natural defenses, making them nearly invisible until the final, explosive moment. Deinonychus fossils indicate robust muscle attachments in hind limbs and tails, combining balance and agility in pursuit. Their elongated, stiffened tails acted as counterbalances during rapid turns and pounces, while their strong hind limb musculature provided explosive acceleration over short distances. These anatomical traits allowed Deinonychus to strike with speed and maintain stability even on uneven terrain or when grappling with struggling prey. The interplay of skeletal design and musculature underscores the evolutionary investment in agility over brute force, a hallmark of ambush strategy. Feather impressions, preserved in exquisite detail, suggest adaptations for silent approach and thermoregulation during prolonged stalking. Fossils from Asia show that even small predators possessed filamentous or quill-like feathers along limbs and tails, which would have muffled movements and reduced visual detection. Additionally, feathering regulates body temperature during extended hunts, particularly in cooler climates or during nighttime activity. This dual purpose exemplifies how evolution optimized multiple survival strategies within a single anatomical innovation. Analysis of coprolites and gut contents confirms a diet of medium-sized herbivores, sometimes extending to juveniles of larger species. Prey included early ceratopsians, small ornithopods, and juvenile sauropods, demonstrating that these predators could exploit niches inaccessible to their larger counterparts. The selective targeting of specific prey sizes suggests a high degree of ecological intelligence, where the energy expenditure of hunting was balanced against the likelihood of success. Such dietary precision allowed ambush predators to thrive alongside giant carnivores without direct competition. Cognitive demands, indicated by relative brain size in troodontids, suggest that strategy and planning were as vital as physical adaptations. Endocast studies reveal enlarged cerebellums and optic lobes, indicating enhanced coordination, spatial awareness, and visual processing. These neurological traits imply that predation involved calculated decisions rather than reflexive reactions, from stalking routes to timing the final attack. Intelligence, therefore, became a weapon as potent as claws or teeth, a defining feature of the ambush predator's niche. Marks on prey bones hint at repeated, targeted attacks rather than random strikes, demonstrating calculated hunting. Fossilized puncture wounds, particularly on limbs and flanks, show patterns of precision that would incapacitate prey efficiently. Some bones exhibit healed injuries, indicating that prey survived multiple attacks, reflecting an ongoing predator-prey dialogue in which both sides adapted continuously. Such evidence underscores the iterative nature of evolution, where each successful ambush refined hunting tactics over generations. Sediment layers and microhabitats show that ambush artists exploited terrain to maximize success rates, from riverbanks to forest edges. Paleoenvironmental reconstructions reveal that hunting occurred not in open plains alone, but in strategically complex areas where cover, choke points, and natural obstacles enhanced stealth. These microhabitats also shaped the prey's behavior, forcing them into predictable patterns that predators could exploit. The interplay between landscape and predation illustrates a sophisticated ecological arms race beyond sheer size or aggression. Throughout these high-stakes encounters, patience and intelligence became as lethal as muscle and jaw, a principle that echoes across every predator lineage. By mastering concealment, timing, and coordinated tactics, ambush predators carved out an evolutionary advantage that rivaled even the largest apex carnivores. Their success illustrates a broader truth of Mesozoic ecosystems. In a world of giants, cunning and strategy could be as decisive as strength, setting the stage for the next wave of evolutionary innovation. Territorial titans clash for dominance. The scent of conquest hung heavy over the open plains as massive jaws and claws faced one another in silent calculation. Sunlight glinted off serrated teeth, and the slightest twitch of a tail or flare of a crest could signal intent, warning rivals of the power poised behind each skeletal frame. Across the Mesozoic landscapes, territories were not merely spaces, but stages for high-stakes contests that determined access to food, mates, and ultimately, evolutionary fitness. Each predator's presence was a statement, a combination of brute strength, honed reflexes, and environmental mastery, all sculpted by millions of years of selective pressures. Here, dominance was written not only in battle scars, but in the very patterns of life that could survive and propagate. Vibrant crests and rugose skull ridges may have communicated strength before teeth ever met flesh. Among Allosaurus fragilis and Acrocanthosaurus attucensis, cranial ornamentation likely served as a social barometer, signaling age, experience, and reproductive fitness. Fossil comparisons reveal variations in ridge height and cranial robustness that correlate with size and potential combat success, suggesting that visual communication could mitigate fatal encounters. Observing these markers may have allowed individuals to calculate risk, choosing when to challenge, retreat, or negotiate through displays rather than direct attack. This interplay of visual intimidation and physical threat underscores the nuanced strategies that defined apex predators beyond sheer force. Powerful hind limbs coiled like springs, ready to deliver bone-crushing lunges at the slightest provocation. Musculoskeletal reconstructions of Tyrannosaurus rex reveal vast attachment sites for femoral and caudal muscles, enabling explosive forward propulsion. Finite element modelling demonstrates that even a single strike of the jaws or a lunging foot could fracture bone, while energy-efficient locomotion allowed sustained movement during territorial patrols. Observing these adaptations in context, it becomes clear that evolution shaped both precision and power, ensuring that each combatant was optimized for the delicate balance of aggression and endurance required to maintain dominance. Imprints left in hardened mud reveal the spatial choreography of repeated confrontations over the same territory. Trackway analyses from Laramidian floodplains display overlapping paths, circular patterns, and evidence of sudden acceleration or deceleration, indicating moments of intense interaction between rivals. These physical traces allow paleontologists to reconstruct behavioral patterns, showing that territorial contests were not random clashes, but structured events with predictable movement and response sequences. Recurrent use of favoured sites suggests that prime hunting grounds and nesting areas were fiercely contested, creating ecological pressure for both predator and prey. Shifting river channels and droughts created hotspots where predators were forced into inevitable contact. Seasonal scarcity concentrates herbivore populations, drawing apex carnivores into direct competition. Fossil assemblages indicate that these zones saw higher rates of bite marks, healed fractures, and overlapping trackways. Climatic stressors amplified the intensity of disputes, illustrating how environmental constraints molded behavior and drove the evolution of both offensive and defensive adaptations. Even fledgling theropods were drawn into the fray, learning instinctual cues for dominance without lethal engagement. Juvenile T. Rex and Allosaurus remains show early development of robust cranial features and limb musculature, suggesting that survival strategies were practiced from a young age. These subadults likely participated in ritualized contests, gaining experience in combat tactics and spatial awareness. By encoding lessons in both behavior and morphology, evolution ensured that survival skills were transmitted across generations, fortifying populations against ecological instability. Patterns of puncture marks on bones suggest that many encounters involved feints, intimidation, and ritualized violence, rather than immediate kills. Fossils reveal healed injuries on ribs, skulls, and tails, scars of contests that did not result in death. Such injuries demonstrate a sophisticated understanding among predators that long-term survival often depended on measured aggression rather than reckless lethality. This balance between force and calculation reflects the complexity of Mesozoic predator dynamics, where physical prowess intersected with strategy. Massive crocodiliforms lurking along waterways inserted an aquatic variable, challenging terrestrial titans to navigate three-dimensional battlefields. Deinosuchus riograndensis, with its armoured hide and ambush predation tactics, could intercept even the largest theropods near rivers or swamps. Evidence from fossilized bite marks on both crocodiliforms and dinosaurs suggests repeated interactions, indicating that apex dominance extended across habitat boundaries. Predators had to negotiate not only rivals of their own kind, but also competing species whose methods of attack differed fundamentally, further shaping adaptive strategies. Microfractures in limb bones provide a record of repeated impact, revealing that survival often required endurance as much as strength. Histological analyses of theropod femora and tibiae show stress-induced remodeling, documenting multiple confrontations over lifetimes. These skeletal clues demonstrate that territorial supremacy was not static. It was a continuous trial by strength, agility, and resilience. The architecture of bone thus becomes a historical ledger of behavioral ecology, encoding lessons in both anatomy and survival. Analysis of seasonal growth rings indicates aggression peaked during mating periods, with contests shaping reproductive opportunities. Oxygen isotope ratios and vascular patterns within bones suggest heightened activity and physiological stress corresponding with reproductive cycles. These data illuminate the interplay between ecology and behavior, showing that conflicts over territory and mates were temporally structured and predictably recurring. Evolutionary pressures favored those capable of both physical dominance and strategic timing, ensuring that reproductive fitness aligned with territorial control. Dominance conferred not only territory but reproductive advantage, channeling genetic traits across successive generations. Specimens displaying healed injuries alongside robust cranial and limb morphology suggest that the most successful individuals survived multiple contests and reproduced extensively. By mediating access to food, nesting sites, and mates, territorial behavior influenced gene flow, shaping the evolution of predator lineages and the ecosystems they dominated. Every victory and defeat inscribed itself upon the landscape and the species, a testament to strategy, strength, and survival writ large across the Mesozoic. As the era's apex predators fought and prevailed, they sculpted their environments, leaving behind tracks, scars, and evolutionary legacies that resonate through the fossil record. In this theatre of dominance, the same principles of power, timing, and cunning that shaped terrestrial battles echoed in aerial and aquatic realms. underscoring a universal truth. In the Mesozoic, survival demanded mastery over both body and strategy, and supremacy was the ultimate currency of life itself. Final frontiers, apex battles before extinction. Twilight settled over the late Cretaceous plains, and predators moved with a caution born of scarcity and survival. The vast ecosystems that once thrived under relentless competition were now fracturing under climatic stress and habitat shifts. Tyrannosaurus rex, the undisputed apex of Laramidia, prowled the edges of floodplains, muscles tensed and nostrils flaring, its senses honed by millennia of predatory perfection. Every step of this colossal hunter was dictated by both instinct and the pressing reality of dwindling prey, revealing that even the mightiest predators were not immune to environmental pressures. Along shrinking river channels, herds of Triceratops and Edmontosaurus clustered tightly, their movements cautious yet calculated. Predators watched and circled, testing the limits of endurance, weighing risk versus reward. Fossil trackways preserved in sandstone reveal these tense interactions, where a single misstep could determine life or death. The plains themselves seemed to shrink beneath the weight of ecological collapse, concentrating confrontation zones where apex predators and their quarry collided in increasingly desperate encounters. Analysis of fossil growth rings uncovers periods of slowed development, evidence of prolonged environmental stress impacting even apex species. Bones from late Cretaceous theropods show interruptions in growth, suggesting that seasonal scarcity and competition forced adaptations in hunting behavior and metabolism. This biological record highlights how apex predators, despite their size and skill, were intricately tied to the rhythms and vulnerabilities of the ecosystems around them. In the shifting shallow seas, Mosasaurus adjusted its hunting routes as prey became patchily distributed across changing coastlines. Marine reptiles faced similar pressures as land predators, with food sources scattered by fluctuating sea levels and temperature gradients. Evidence from isotope analysis of teeth indicates seasonal migrations covering hundreds of kilometers, echoing terrestrial struggles for territory and survival. Even in the oceans, the rules of predation had shifted. Strategy and endurance rivaled raw power in determining dominance. Dried floodplains revealed the traces of desperate hunts, where apex predators had little room for error. Fossilized footprints of tyrannosaurids intersect with hadrosaur trails, hinting at the tense cat-and-mouse games played out under the shadow of extinction pressures. These preserved moments suggest that, as prey became scarcer, confrontations grew more calculated and lethal, with every interaction a finely tuned exercise in energy management and risk assessment. Stable isotopes in marine reptile remains show temperature swings that redefined migratory and feeding patterns across oceans. Changes in water temperature and oxygen content forced marine apex predators to adjust hunting strategies, sometimes venturing into unfamiliar waters or competing with rivals over newly concentrated prey. This convergence of environmental stresses across both land and sea illustrates a planet-wide recalibration of ecological hierarchies as the end of the Cretaceous approached. Opportunistic feeding became common, with creatures exploiting every remaining carcass as competition intensified. Scavenging behavior is evident in bite marks on herbivore bones, indicating that even the most powerful carnivores occasionally relied on chance to sustain themselves. In this climate of scarcity, adaptability became as crucial as strength, and predators refined strategies to capitalize on fleeting opportunities, a testament to evolutionary ingenuity under pressure. Marks on bones reveal repeated clashes and near misses, painting a picture of high-risk hunting strategies in a pressured ecosystem. Pathologies on tyrannosaur and dromaeosaur fossils suggest frequent physical confrontations, not only with prey, but with other predators. These violent encounters reflect the heightened tension of shrinking territories, where dominance could be secured or lost in a single struggle. Even once dominant theropods occasionally withdrew from confrontations, a sign of changing territorial calculations under duress. Energetic demands and environmental unpredictability forced predators to weigh engagement versus survival, and some individuals survived not through victory but prudence. This behavioral flexibility highlights that apex dominance was increasingly contingent on strategy, timing, and adaptation rather than sheer size alone. Vegetation shifts, including forest fragmentation and angiosperm expansion, created novel hunting grounds and escape routes alike. Dense groves offered concealment for ambush, while open plains increased visibility for pursuit. These environmental modifications altered predator-prey dynamics, fundamentally influencing hunting styles, social behavior, and even species distribution. Predators that could exploit both cover and openness gained an edge, demonstrating that survival demanded both cognition and instinct. Volcanic ash and sediment layers hint at environmental catastrophes looming in the background, shaping the final battles of these giants. Episodes of local volcanism, storms, and sea level fluctuations compounded the pressures on already stressed ecosystems, forcing apex predators to confront not only rivals and prey but also the unpredictability of nature itself. These geological records embed a dramatic narrative of life under duress, where survival required constant adaptation in a rapidly changing world. In the last chapters of the Cretaceous, each predator-prey interaction became a testament to survival, leaving echoes that would endure only in stone and memory. Tyrannosaurs, mosasaurs, and other apex creatures engaged in struggles that reflected both evolutionary perfection and vulnerability. Their final confrontations chronicled in fossilized bones and sediment. As these battles reached their climax, the stage was set for the mass extinction that would forever alter Earth's apex hierarchies, leaving only the fossil record as witness to these titanic struggles and reminding us that even the mightiest are ultimately subject to the inexorable forces of change. Time has carved the stories of colossal struggle into stone, leaving echoes of lives lived in relentless pursuit of survival and supremacy. We have glimpsed worlds where power, strategy, and instinct intertwined, and where every battle left a mark on the unfolding tapestry of life. The earth that once trembled beneath these giants now whispers their legacy through fossils and landscapes, a silent testament to the drama of existence. As these titanic echoes fade into memory, the wonder of their world lingers, urging us to ponder the fragile balance of life and the forces that shape it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to continue exploring Earth's forgotten worlds and the stories written in deep time.